This episode of the Rainbow Brainskull Hour is brought to you by No Sponsor. With No Sponsor, you can get to your content faster without any extra messages that plant desires or needs into the forefront of your consciousness. Go to Nowhere and enter the code NOTHING to get a 0% discount off your subscription to The Empty Void. My guest this week is the amazing magician Ben Seidman. Hit it!
Welcome to the Rainbow Brainskull Hour. You're gonna have a good real time today. Every week there's a new guest, so that you'll learn something new. 'Cause that's all that we're here to do.
It's great to be on your podcast.
Thank you. How do you sound to yourself?
I sound as typical as I always do to myself.
Do you enjoy it?
Listening to myself? No. Does anybody? I mean, does anyone like listening to themselves? Not me.
They hate it.
Hopefully people don't hate listening to me. We'll find out, I guess.
I think you have a good voice, and I think you have a very joyful presence. Like, you seem very happy. Not that I know the deep insides of you. Maybe you spend 95% of your day just miserable, and I only catch 5% of the good. But I have this theory also that maybe the reason we all hate the way our voices sound is that's why we incarnated into this being. It's because all the other ones we couldn't stand. It's okay, so go into this being because that's the one voice that you can't.
Oh, that's so
stand
funny
to hear the outside of it.
And there's just shells of people walking around that have no soul because we left.
Oh yeah, but you're asking if there's. I'm turning your volume up here. Is there's any theme to the show? There's no theme to the show. I just started doing it, but. I think what the theme is going to be about is the creative struggle, like people that put out lots of stuff or perform a lot, seeing the side of them that they are having trouble with,
sure.
which maybe gives people that aren't doing as much as they'd like some hope, and that like, oh, if this person I look up to has this neuroses, then maybe my neuroses is okay, and then everything is good. So it's spreading that, and just to put out some sweet audio content, because
awesome.
I love content, and I want to put out more content.
Sure.
And I love stamps.com and BarkBox, and I just want to be a podcaster so bad. I want to be in that world.
What's up, what the fuckers, what the fuck buddies, what the fucking ears? Just start off your podcast like that.
Yeah, let's do it. Lock the gate. Look. Okay, yeah, and if you can't tell, we just go into it. Just Mark Maron style.
Sure.
Who knows where I'll start that.
There is a bass. There is a bass on the wall too, so we could take it down and we could do the dun 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 dun.
Yeah, we could if you wanna grab it, or we'll grab it in a second. But that's something I've been meaning to talk to you about too. So, in case I don't do an intro for this later, this is Ben Seidman talking right now.
Hi, everybody.
He's a absolutely fantastic magician, friend, and recently I discovered that he plays the bass, and the way I found this out was because we were at our mutual friend Drennan Davis's house for this thing he does called House Band, aka Church, aka Keep It Real Wednesdays, aka 20 people jammed into one room playing instruments, freestyling. And you were just kind of eyeing the bass, and like I was trying to figure out what you were eyeing about him. Like, oh, has he not seen a bass before, or has he seen a lot of bass before? It's like it's either you've never seen one before in your life, or you know exactly what that thing is.
Or I'm just staring at your midsection and the bass is in the way.
Yeah, it's probably that one. Then
it's probably a combination.
But then you just after I'd like put it down, you were like, "May I?" And then I'm like, "Sure." And I handed it off to you, and you could play like a motherfucker.
That's a huge exaggeration, but thank you.
You played as if you were someone who was not given the bass as a chore, like, oh, the guitar roll is taken, I guess I'll play bass. You played it funk style, like you had influences, like you played probably in high school, junior high. When did you start? I feel like I've been talking this whole time.
No, you're great. This is your podcast.
Yeah,
I'll interrupt you anytime if you'd like.
Please do. I love interruptions. I feel like I need it.
So no, man, you stopped there. I wish you had kept going. It would have been much better if that was a true interruption. I played bass in high school mostly, and if you listen to me pick up a guitar or a bass, it's very clear when I started playing. Like, oh, does that sound like Weezer and Eve Six? Okay, I know about when this guy was playing music.
Those are classics now, though. Those are those are on the oldies stations.
I know, it's so weird. Like, if you're ever in a bar and, like, Green Day starts playing, watching the age of the people who get excited, me including, is very fun.
What's the guy's name? Mike Durant. Those are some great lines. Those are some really catchy, like, minimalist, easy to play, but still getting the everything going lines. Like, that's not to be, there's nothing to scoff at.
Oh, right.
That.
And it's fun to go back and be like, which of these albums do hold up and which don't at all? And
that's not a fun, or that is a fun game. It can be fun. Also, it brings a real existential crisis to yourself. Like, I guess all does dissolve, huh?
Yeah,
it all does.
Well, I mean, it's so funny how alt morphed into just pop now. Like the genre that used to be alternative music is now just like you hear what would have been classified as alt on the radio and you go, oh yeah, that's a pop song now. It just kind of evolved in that way over, I guess, 10 years. I don't know. I'm 33. I'm not.
Yeah, me too. We're exactly the same.
Whoa, when's your birthday?
July 26th. What, you said January 26th?
No, I was trying to say the same thing that you did. I was born in December.
Oh, magic style.
Yeah. I have a prediction, and if you open up that piece of paper, it says July 26th. Crinkle, crinkle, crinkle.
It says Jan 6, but that's because I wrote Jan 6 on it. But that's how much faith I have in you as a magician, as I thought you could have maybe done that. You've done tricks where I've been looking at your hand to see, like, okay, when's he going to do the thing where it's like trickery, and it's like you go in between the frames of reality and do the editing and then come out with it. I have no idea how you did it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, you were watching my hands like I watch your midsection. And I really hope you don't start this podcast after we talked about your midsection.
Her sweets with sweet can. I only edit you to say sweet midsection.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, the first time I ever went to the Magic Castle is to see, is that still okay to do, like when you screw up a word where you say
do
it
Sean
again?
Connery?
Yeah, where you do it double time, like, or when someone says like exactly what I mean. But yeah, back to the thought that has something to do with anything. The Magic Castle, first time I ever went there, only time I ever went there actually, to see your act, and it's an awesome place. It's mystical. They force you to wear a suit.
Oh, yeah. For those of you who don't know, there's a venue called the Magic Castle in Hollywood, California. It is a private club, members only, for magicians. And members will come. It's like kind of...
Wait, how did I go then?
Because you were a guest of me. And
okay,
I
so
was
and
performing
they're friends.
there. Yes, yeah. You can invite people, but it's a whole thing you have to wear. It's a very strict dress code. Wear a suit and tie and all that stuff. Dress up. It's a very fancy restaurant. Everyone's all dolled up, and then there's magic shows, and it can be an awesome night. It can also be like you could see a legendary magician there who's one of the best in the world at whatever genre of sleight of hand or psychological manipulation or whatever they do. Or you could also go and just happen to catch, like, I saw 3 performers and it was like a bad open mic night. You kind of don't know what you're getting into. Sometimes it's a combination, but yeah, it can be really, really fun.
But would it even, I don't think it'd even go as far as bad open mic night, because don't you have to be of a certain caliber to even get to perform there?
Yes, but my standards are really, really high when it comes to magic. So I'm also kind of jaded because I've been doing it for so long, and I've been doing it like professionally for so long. So I've seen a lot of good and a lot of bad. So I guess I've seen performers where I go, oh yeah, that's not very original or interesting to me, but the audience does like it. So that's a good point.
Have you done magic longer than you've done music, or music came first?
Oh, that's a great question. Magic did come first.
So you've always been playing with cards, like doing tricks?
I learned my first trick when I was 6 years old.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I was not good. I was not a good magician, but I got better.
Would they placate you, like be like, oh, that was very good, Ben, and then it's clearly not a good trick?
Most of the time. You know what? There are some people who will just be like, nope, I saw it. They'll call you out immediately.
That's
and it's just like, that's a small child. But yeah, I think it did help. My parents got to the point where I got better as I was a kid, and then at a certain point I could just do almost anything, and they would be supportive and impressed, but also like, oh yeah, our son has magical powers. It's okay. It's fine. Like, I could make a tiger appear in the living room. They'd be like, yep, nice. That's nice, honey.
There's
Come to dinner.
I've asked you this before on Mike Kaplan's podcast, but I wanted it to be on this podcast just because it's such an interesting thing. But I asked if there's anything that has fooled you, or if every trick, it's like you know the basis of it, and you pretty much answered like you know the mechanics of every trick, even if you don't know the details of it. It's like every magic trick falls in a certain category, like, object in an impossible location, other category. And is this true? There's no trick where it's like, I have no idea how he did that. That's magic.
I don't think, no, that I definitely can be fooled. It just doesn't happen very often, but it still can happen. There's like a handful of people out there who will still fool me pretty consistently. Not many, but when it happens, it's so delightful for me. Like, I love that feeling. And, but I learned so much about magic. I've been doing it for so long, and I try to study as much as I can, and get better all of the time. That's the goal.
When did you turn pro?
Great question. If I made $25 as a 12-year-old, does that,
Yep.
that doesn't, okay.
Getting paid for it. That's
All right,
pro.
Then 12.
Okay, nice. No, then you've been at this
Full-time pro magician, age 12.
When did you move to Los Angeles?
I came to Los Angeles in 2013.
When did you get accepted into the secret Illuminati of the Magic Castle?
Ramin, I said we couldn't talk about this anyway.
Okay, fine. When did you get accepted into the Freemasonry of the Illuminati?
You're gonna have to edit that out also.
Okay, when did you get
I'm going to interrupt you.
laid at the No, not at the Magic.
I got laid at the Magic Castle. No. What? No, I don't think so. I don't think I've ever been laid at the Magic Castle.
It seems like it's too formal of a place. It's not dirty like improv theaters or the Comedy Store, where it's like, yeah, people probably do it here all the time.
No, I know for a fact that there are people who have gotten down there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but
Like in the
I'm not.
backstage areas or something.
I think there was someone who did it on stage, and then they got found out and then kicked out immediately and banned for life.
Something I love about there is that, not that openers are bad, but I just like the novelty of it, is there's no opener. Like, we go to see your show, and I'm like, I wonder who's going to be on this lineup before Ben headlines. And then you just come out, like, no music, no anything. You're like, hey, guys, how's it going? And you carry the show yourself. And there's something, like, just very empowering about it's just you. There's no microphone. It's just you and this little theater, or it's not little, but,
It's small.
Relatively.
It seats like that. The one that I play seats, I think 80 or 90 people, so it's pretty small.
And it's like this just intimate thing, and it's just you. It's got this total like kind of like little kid like gathering the parents around, check out this thing kind of thing. And like if the lights were to go out, the show would still go on.
Absolutely. They modeled that room after like a Victorian parlor. There was like a history of wealthy people gathering and having these salons and parties in their homes, and sometimes they'd have a magician come and entertain. So that was the vibe that they're trying to go for. It is super weird though. That's the weirdest thing for me working that room, is not having a mic.
So the other rooms have mics?
Well, there's a bigger room that it's still tiny. It only seats 200. And then there's the parlor, which is the mid-sized room that I work, and then a close-up room, which is like seats like 25 people, which is even smaller. So the bigger room is the only one with a microphone.
I think I was in the close-up room as well. It was the guy with the Darth Vader kind of bit, the German guy.
I think
this
you told
might be
me
of
about
no value to the listeners. I need to learn that. That's something I'm learning on podcasts, like how much of this content is good in conversation and how much of it's going to be good for Joe Listener six-pack at home.
Joe Listener six-pack sometimes dresses up as Darth Vader and plays the Magic Castle, and he is loving this bit.
He was really good, actually. He was very delightful, like for both the trick and the the personality behind it.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't that close-up room, there's another close-up room called the Showdown. What's that? Where all the magicians are showing you their best tricks in under a minute, and you sit at a table, and it's like speed dating for magicians, and they come by and do a trick really fast. Is that not allowed to be said on the podcast?
No, that's fine to say. That's a thing. That's not a regular thing. I think that happens like once a year on one night.
No way, and I caught it? I thought it happened every night.
No, I haven't even seen it. Yeah,
you haven't seen it? No. I go there once and I catch it?
Absolutely.
That was a magic night then.
It was a magical thing that just happened.
There was so we go and sit at a table, or we didn't get to sit, we had to stand, but the three guys at our table looked like the actual three guys that run the world. Like there was one like Rothschild looking guy, one Rockefeller looking guy, one Warren Buffett, whatever. Like, so it's like the Monopoly man, the Mr. Burns man, and I forget what the third one looked like, but magicians came by and they... One guy would spin a card around his whole body. Another guy would do like coin magic up close, and it was just intense, like compacted into a minute magic.
Yeah, I think they were competing to win some sort of like honorary thing there doing that.
Like a badge or stage time or name on the wall.
I don't know, maybe some sort of potion that helps them be more magical.
What about in that scene? Do you feel like they lean more skeptic, atheist, there's no actual magic in the world, or do they lean kind of more, there is real magic? Because I want to believe in magic, but I've never experienced any other than the stuff that you've shown me, but I've never experienced like real like pentagram style magic, but I don't want to draw symbols and bury a goose egg and cut my arm open, so I'm never going to actually... go figure it out, but I'm interested in that world. Is it kind of like more Penn and Teller, like strict materialist? Like, no, we know all the tricks there are.
The performers?
Yeah.
You're talking, well, I think the vibe is much more like, oh yeah, we know we're this is just a group of people who have learned a set of skills to... It's all Liam Neeson. They've learned a very serious set of skills, and their goal is to deceive people, but in a way that gives them the feeling of magic. But that being said, there are a handful of people who are trying to dip into things that feel more real. I would say less magicians probably believe in real magic than, say, like the world of psychics and people who are essentially saying, like, I'll talk to dead relatives and read your mind and things like that. But there are certainly magicians who can do things that are equal to or just as, if not way more amazing than those things that people who could start religions, people who do perform these little pieces of magic that really feel real. And it's kind of a matter of, it's up to the performer to decide how they're going to present it and their own personal ethics. Like me personally, I did a show once where I decided I was just going to do mind reading, which isn't my specialty. Like I did sleight of hand. That was what I came up with. And then doing like comedy and sleight of hand on stage and a little pickpocketing and some mentalism and like mind games.
What are is there just like 7 categories that they all fall under like mind reading, close up?
You can break it up in genres in a few different ways. Like there's manipulation, which is performing on stage and using your dexterity to do effects, usually performed in front of a larger group of people, and that's based on sleight of hand. And then there's mentalism, which is sort of mind magic. The way that I describe it, which I think is the easiest to chew onto, to grab and have it make sense, is mentalism is doing magic tricks with thoughts instead of objects. So, reading someone's mind, putting a thought in someone's mind, predicting the future, that type of stuff.
Okay,
if you do that really well, you can totally make people think you're 100% for real. And I think there are definitely psychics and people who are claiming to do it for real that are doing magic tricks.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like...
Yeah, it's tough to know, because even if the whole thing with magic is, or not the whole thing with magic, obviously, but one of the things with magic is it's often the trick has been done not at the point where you think it's being done. Like it happened like a minute ago when you think it's happening now, and I'm always thinking about that. It's like, well, yeah, they've taken me on this journey and now it adds up, but like what if I was fooled like just 1 minute into it and it's all based on that one minute into it? But I want to go back to that pin that I just put in there where you said you decided one night you were going to do all mind reading.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to do it as an experiment, and I wasn't going to say, "Hi, I'm a magician." That I wasn't going to use the word magician. I was just going to introduce myself to people at this party where I was hired to walk around and amaze people. I was just going to introduce myself, say, "Hi, my name is Ben Seidman. I'm here to do some interesting things," and then just launch into telling people things about their lives and having them think of things and tell them what they are. And I think I got 20 minutes into the gig. It was going really well. People were freaking out. But I think it was about 20 or 25 minutes in. And then this girl pulled me aside, like, away from the party, sat me down on the couch, told me both of her parents had just died in a horrible car crash and wanted me to communicate with them so that I could give her advice for her future.
Oh, jeez.
But, like, 100, like, huge, like, giant eyes staring at me, dead serious. Talk to my parents who died a month ago so you can tell me what to do. And that's when I was like, oh, yeah, that's why I do card tricks. Because some people will just, like, are inherently more skeptical, and some people will just, like, will believe you that you're... Some people
How did
will
that
believe...
play out?
Oh, my gosh. I contacted her mom and dad, and I told her... I gave her the best advice that I could from one human to another. I just told her what I would tell a friend. I said, listen, I don't have real powers. Like, that's the other thing. If someone buys into what you're doing and you're doing that type of thing, it doesn't matter what disclaimer you put on it or how much you tell them that it's not real. They'll just be like, oh yeah, I know you have to say that because, you know, like, legally I'm sure you have to say that, but I know that you do have real powers. It's like, no, that was like a sleight of hand trick and I made you think that I was reading your mind. Like, no, I know the government's tracking you and you have to say that. You can't talk someone out of it at a certain point. So I just kind of, I gave her a fair disclaimer, said that what I was doing was for the sake of entertainment, and she pushed past that and said, oh yeah, that's not a thing, you're real, please help me. And I said, I can only tell you what I would tell a friend, and gave her the best advice I could.
Oh, and do you remember what that was, or it's gone now?
I don't. I don't. It was just in the moment, you know, I told her to talk to a therapist and not a psychic. I told her to spend time with her friends and, you know, like...
Oh, that's good advice, yeah.
The type of advice that I think, you know, basic stuff. But she was just in a rough place. But I realized in that moment, you know, how powerful that stuff is. And very rarely will I'll throw in mentalism and mind reading tricks when I'm performing, but I'll never just do only that, I don't think.
Do you consider that trick when I saw you at the Magic Castle with the numbers and calling someone, is that mentalism?
That's kind of like bridging the gap. It's called mental magic is the way that I describe it. And so it's mentalism based, but I'm also doing magic tricks surrounding it. And so it's not purely mind reading and it's not purely predicting the future, but it just has like a feeling of that. It should have the feeling of that was completely impossible.
Yeah, and that's a pretty new genre in magic, I think, right? Like being able to have, I'm butchering what the trick is, but it might as well be this. But basically like telling someone, okay, pick a random number in your phone, and then they dial it, and then the person on the other end of the phone has like some kind of information that they shouldn't be able to have, like that kind of thing going. Like, if that's not the right way of describing it, it's pretty, that's how I remember it, and thus the magic happened to me, but...
incorporating technology in that way is, of course, newer, but it's based on, there were people who were predicting the future hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
And pretending to know the unknowable. So that's kind of what that is, just a newer version. But that routine that you saw, I developed over like 4 or 5 years. It was a really long process. And
I've been to your house, but just the living room area. But is your bedroom like total serial killer looking? Like, because a lot of magicians have, like, just because they're trying to work out one thing, they have like a lot of one type of card out, or just little like things set up. It's all empty except for the props. Or are you pretty much just like normal looking?
Oh no, my room looks insane. There's a lot of rubber cement and just like strange things, and like oh, there's chicken feathers today and boxes of playing cards and ropes.
What about like, were you into stand up young? Because I see you sometimes, like, parts of your act are like clips you'll post, like it's just comedy, like there's no trick to it, but you'll just take like a minute to just do like this joke and there's not a magic element to it? Or is comedy something you got into recently and then it's like, oh, I kind of want to incorporate the fun to it?
I wanted to do it earlier than I started doing it. I think maybe when I was in college is when I really started like enjoying comedy as a fan and just being a huge fan of stand-up.
Who'd you like? Who was like one of the first two?
Oh man, that's a great question. Well, when I was growing up, when I was really young, George Carlin.
Oh yeah,
Like just all the way.
Pussy Fart.
He's so good. I mean, I got my friend. I have this distinct memory of my friend Willie, who was my best friend growing up, still a close friend. He had gotten the book Brain Droppings, and he was reading to me over the phone this section about a frozen Mexican dinner. And the whole premise of it was like, why would you buy a frozen Mexican dinner? Like, bring him inside and warm him up first. And it's so silly, but it was written in that Carlin way where it's brilliant. And we were just, he was laughing so hard he couldn't breathe, and I was too. And so then I started like seeking out albums and stuff. So
yeah, he was
really
the best because he had, I mean, there is no best, but he was one of the best just because he had both ends of the spectrum of the pure silliness and facial expression comedy like that just a 2-year-old could like, and would get into, you know, socio-political, the world should be this way, and also we're at the front. You know, what is it? When you're born, you're given tickets to the freak show, and when you're born in the United States, you're given front row seats.
Yeah, you do a good Carlin.
Oh, it's okay. My friend Mike
good.
Sears, he does an awesome one, but he's like, he does actual good impressions, and I feel like I've just been around people that do really good impressions, and thus I never considered myself a good impression person because I'm thinking about like, no, this is if he was sitting in the room right next to me, he would have to do the thing.
But he is not. I am, and I don't do impressions at all. So I'm like, that's Carlin.
The way a pussy smells.
It's really good.
Do you ever stick your finger inside of your armpit and then smell it for a little? Or his are even more cool. Whatever, it's bad impression. Maybe that's what the podcast is about. Bad impressions.
That can be the name. Bad Impressions with Ramin Nazer.
Whenever someone... you put someone on the spot, you're like, come on, do your British accent. And they're like, no, I can't do it. You should just do it in that moment because the bad accent you do is going to be way better than any accurate impersonation.
That's 100%
It's going to be so
true.
unique.
I started doing a really terrible, like, Eastern European accent just because it brought me great joy. And I would just do it to my girlfriend all of the time. And I was performing on a cruise ship in the summer, and she was with me. And we were in a swimming pool, and I was just like, yes, my name is John Smith. I'm American, born and raised in Indiana. I have 7,000 Twitter accounts that I maintain and manage. Big fan of current president and administration, but purely American. Nothing problematic, and it's not a good accent, but I'm doing that, and we're messing around. And as I'm doing this guy gets into the pool with this other guy. These two guys come in, and I just keep doing the accent, and they sit there for like 5 minutes giving me the weirdest look ever. And then I stop talking, and they turn to each other, and they start speaking in perfect Russian. And I'm just like, oh no, it's them. They're doing the accent. I don't know if I ask them for tips or if I just politely walk away or swim away. It was real embarrassing.
So in the stand-up comedian world, the cruise ship is seen as kind of like, it pays well, but it's like it's a lower thing. Like, you don't want to be doing the cruise ships because, like, the people on it, you have to resort to, like, hackier stuff. But, it seems like it's probably different in the magic world. Or is it, do you enjoy going on cruise ships? You're like, oh, no, I'm doing a cruise ship this month.
I don't do them that much, and so I really enjoy them because I don't do them that often. There are less, I think there are less environments where magicians perform than comedians. Like, there's a whole channel dedicated to comedy, right? Comedy Central, and Netflix specials have stand-up all of the time. Magic is so much more niche, so there's less genres. So I think performing on cruise ships is seen as higher up in magic than it is in comedy, I think. But also, I mean, I kind of just do my own thing. Like, I cut anything out of my act that would hurt old people's ears. But other than that, I'm kind of just doing my own thing. And
yeah, the tricks are going to be the tricks,
totally.
regardless.
And I get, that's like my highest, that's the compliment that I get the most, which makes me feel really good when I'm there, is people who cruise a lot say, even like older people come up and be like, we've seen, hundreds of magicians. And sometimes they even use the term hack. They're like, they're all hacky or they're all silly or whatever. And you did material we've never seen, and you just seemed like a normal person. So that's a high compliment. So I think it's like turning over. There's more people who are doing it who are like less hacky. I think the stigma is still going to remain. But then of course there are tons of people in both magic and comedy and any other things who are just doing like really shticky, hacky material. Just because that's maybe cruises are the only place where they can work. But there's a handful of people who are really good.
When you work a cruise ship, are you the only one? Are you the only magician?
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, there'll be usually like a comedian and a couple musician guest entertainers, they call them. But I know a handful of people who are doing cruises in the magic world. And there's a handful of them who are really good doing interesting, like good, new, creative material. And then a whole bunch of people who are not. And that's, that's how it is.
The tone speaks everything. All right, I want to return to a thought I had earlier on when you said that you've been doing magic since you were 6, and then music came like a little later. Was there ever a point where you were more about the music and less about the magic, or was it always all magic? And
I think...
Because I'm all over the place, and I struggle with trying to keep one thing going and making that, because I don't know, I think you can progress more if you're focused on one thing rather than if you're scatterbrained everywhere and then just, jack of all trades.
You're a real renaissance man. I had no idea you were such a good musician.
Oh, thank you.
You were complimenting me because you didn't know that I played music, but I also didn't know that you played music, and you can you can really play. Like, I played in a rock band for fun and I was okay. You can really shred, which is amazing.
Oh, thank you. I've played violin since I was about 4. And then I picked up guitar at 15, and then guitar at 14, bass at 15, and just always been kind of messing around on piano and stuff. I don't consider myself a good piano player, but I think I'm a good string instrument.
Yeah, it totally shows. Player. It was really, really cool.
But I like something that there's a lot of resistance with it, which it's a stupid complaint, because I realized that in 2017 there's of course bigger problems in the world, and the world is too busy to care what you are. Like, oh, is he a magician or is he a comedian, or what does he do? What's his thing? The world's too busy to care if you're doing multiple things, and there's a lot of resistance in trying to be vulnerable in, if you want to create like music that's serious, like you're like, why am I creating serious music? Like, this is something I could so make fun of myself for making. I better make it goofy. I better make a song about something that's got a humor element in it. So you fall into this trap of not being able to be vulnerable because you think that the world sees you in one way, which is the reason I had a lot of resistance with this podcast. Like, I'm not a podcaster. Everyone has a podcast. I should stick to drawings and sitting on the couch.
Yeah, I mean, I have those thoughts all the time about everything. They're constantly, those are constantly going through my brain, and I'm trying to mitigate them as best as I can, because I do think that the most successful people, the people who are real movers and shakers in the industries that we are in and are the people who just either don't have those questioning thoughts at all, or know how to just hear them and then just let them go. Because everyone has doubts about everything. And if you don't, that's crazy. You're a sociopath.
Yeah, you are.
Or just the president? I don't know. I'm not really sure. But, successful people do I think, cope with them in a different way. So the thing that I'm trying to do more in my life is to hear those thoughts and just kind of dismiss them, almost like when you're doing a mindfulness meditation and you're trying to relax and you're trying to clear your brain, and then a thought comes in. You're not supposed to get angry at the thought and try to force it out. You're supposed to just sort of politely turn away and just let it go and let it float away as you go back into your zone. And I'm trying to do the same thing with whenever I'm for instance, talking on a podcast and go, oh, I'm not a podcast guest. I'm not a real comedian. I do magic tricks. I can't really be funny.
You're both, though.
I thank you, but these are the thoughts that I have, and so I'm trying to get better at politely stepping away and being oh, it's okay. This is just it's fine.
Do you feel more pressure with, because when I put myself in your shoes doing tricks, if I'm doing stand-up and a joke goes bad, or even playing music or a note goes bad, you can kind of do that thing where you keep hitting the bad note and then you make that the new thing. But you can't, if you screw up a trick, you've screwed up the trick. So
totally disagree. I'm going to cut you. I'm going to interrupt you immediately because there are so many times where I've screwed something up and turned it around and they've had no idea, like zero idea. Oh yeah, and most people, They either didn't have an idea or thought like, oh, it's funny how you led me down this path pretending that you were going to screw something up and then succeeded in the end as like a dramatic thing when really I just had a major cluster fudge and then got myself out of it. It's like, that's part of the cool thing about magic is the audience doesn't, and stand-up and music, the audience doesn't know where you're going. They don't know what your intentions are. You very rarely will start out and say, I'm going to make this happen, and this exact process is going to take place that I'll describe to you, and then I will prove it. It's much more like the moments are happening as you go, and then, so if something veers off course, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure, and you can just steer it back in a good direction. But that's also that comes from doing it for
so
a long
you
time.
Always keep that in your head then as you're doing it. It's like you're almost like a chess player. Like if this screws up, I know that I can go this path with it, this path with it, or this path with it.
Sure. And if something happens that has never happened before, then it's just you hope that the adrenaline and the previous knowledge that you have are enough to carry you in the right direction. And then if there's a screw up and the direction you go works, then you just make a mental note of it or you write it down. And sometimes that'll happen, and then it's even better than the outcome that you had originally written for the trick. And then that becomes the new norm.
Yeah, that's cool. I never thought of it like that. I always just, once again, pigeonholing this format must stick towards this, which is probably why a lot of people, or not the main reason they don't try a magic out or something, but probably something that a lot of people think is that way of it. Back to the resistance sort of thing. So when you say you don't consider yourself a podcast guest or a comic, do you have dreams of like, you know what, I'd like to one day just do like a just straight up comedy special with like no tricks? Or would you like to just put out just a music album, no trickery, no comedy, just pure that? Do you have those?
I think it would be really fun to put something out that had no magic in it and was just comedy. But then also the nagging thing in my brain is like, oh yeah, you're just a magician who can also do comedy with the magic. You're not a real comedian. I have that nagging thought. That's like a vulnerable thought of mine that kind of like eats away at me. But then sometimes I'll write a bit and I'll do it and it'll be like, oh no, that was, you just did stand up that had nothing to do with tricks and it worked. So why are you questioning yourself all of the time?
Yeah, you shouldn't. And I think your bits are good, and I think you have like a natural like kind of like funniness.
Thanks, man. Thank you. I think part of it is just the fact that I've been doing magic since I was so young that that's how I see myself as. And the comedy thing is newer. Probably the right thing to do is just to go up and not do magic more and do that more often. And I think that would, like, I did an open mic when I lived in Reno, Nevada, like years ago. And I said, okay, this is a comedy show. I'm only going to do comedy. And so I just did a set of only comedy. And it was really fun and exhilarating.
How long ago?
This was maybe 2011, 12.
Oh, yeah, not that long ago.
Yeah.
Although kind of, if you look at the landscape of the world, it's like infinity years ago. But
totally.
As far as us as human beings, it's like, oh, that wasn't long ago. Like,
yeah.
I still have the same driver's license or something. But to the outside world, everything looks much different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I also have a question for you to get back to what you were saying about I'm not going to play it's going to be hard for me to write a serious song and be vulnerable. I'll throw something funny in there because maybe that's just the reflex that you have. Do you feel that same way with comedy, though?
Where you can't be vulnerable with comedy?
Yeah.
No, maybe not, because I don't see a place for it. Because with comedy, I'm always thinking of am I being interesting in that moment? If not laughing, like not the whole laughs per minute thing. You got to keep them laughing. Like I think it's okay to keep the tension going for 30 seconds for something that will or will not pay off, and then maybe perhaps doesn't, but you can still recover. But ultimately it is all about just kind of being a you up there. People like seeing a you. Like, they don't want laughs per minute. They don't want to hear about a certain topic, but they do want to see the uniqueness of a you. And maybe that's what this whole podcast is also about, is that I want to uncover more of people that I like's everythingness and encourage them in a direction that I think they have potential, but they're getting in their own way. Because, like, I'm not going to say, like, no, you should go be a ballerina, because I haven't seen you do anything that indicates that you'd be a good ballerina.
I'm a great ballerina.
Maybe. I haven't seen it.
I don't even need to practice. I'm fine.
I haven't seen it. I think you shouldn't. I think you're not a podcast guest ballerina person. But but if I see you being funny, but then you see, like, no, that's for the comedians. Like, look at those Netflix specials you talk about. Most of them are, you can hate watch them because they're so bad. Not all of them, but there's a lot of hate watchable ones where it's like, that's what they're opening with, and then that's the whole special. And it's, I mean, I'm sure to an alien, like, the stuff I think is funny, or to people 10 years from now, the stuff I find funny now is just absolute cheeseball, hack, everything.
I don't know about that, man. You're so out of the box. You're one of my favorite comedians to watch.
20 years or something. But I do believe that all comedy has a lower, or has a shorter shelf life than music does. Like, you can listen to old Hendrix, it holds up.
Absolutely.
Old Lenny Bruce doesn't hold up. Bill Hicks doesn't hold up. Bob Hope doesn't hold. Like, you can't play that for an 18-year-old and they'll be like, this is fucking hilarious.
Sure. I mean, if you listen to Hicks, it does. It's like, it's really, really interesting, but in the context of that time. Like, if you saw a Netflix special and it was him doing that material right now, it would be just confusing.
And magic holds up as long as they don't know as long as they haven't studied the trick.
I don't know if it does. I mean, it kind of, maybe it does. And in a way it does, because all magicians are kind of recycling these old ideas. And if they're good, refurbishing them and changing them around to make them new again. But, like, a lot of the principles that magicians use, date back hundreds and hundreds of years. So I think maybe, like, the basic ideas hold up, but the way that magicians perform certainly doesn't. Like, that's the problem with when you see a lot of magicians, it just seems antiquated. And that's why magic has this sort of, like, a lot of people look at magic as being cheesy, or, oh, that's for kids. And it's because they've seen these, like, Job from Arrested Development style people who are taking themselves so seriously.
It gets a bad rap.
It totally does. And as it should. There are so many people who are out there who are, who I think are living in the past, and, like, they learned these tricks from books that, came out in the 1960s or 70s, and they read the presentation that performer used at that time, and they're like, well, perfect, this is all I need. It's time to start performing tonight. And that's the problem. That's why it feels so disingenuous a lot when you see a magician. But that's why the people who I really like, the handful of magicians who really light up my brain, are like a comedian. You're seeing them as people.
Yeah.
And it seems, and it's like, you're getting a look into their life and into the brain of a genuine human being, as opposed to just going up there and doing shtick and saying, like, oh, this water bottle that I'm looking at, if I just peel off this label, look behind the label, do you see that? And just, you go off on this tangent of what is clearly bullshit and made up for the sake of the trick, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to talk to you like the humans that you are.
Yeah, maybe that's why we don't like hackiness and hamminess, is because you're putting a shield up against who you are, and you're presenting it like the old book said to do it, rather than letting your actual personality come through. And maybe you're not animated or loud. Maybe you are, like, kind of stoic and quiet, and since you're afraid of that being judged, you ham it up a little and try to be animated, or vice versa.
Yeah. I mean, why is it that, I don't know, you and I would look at someone who we would determine as hack, and, we have this huge aversion to it, like, it just makes your skin crawl. But there are also people who would watch probably that same performance of comedy or magic or whatever it might be, and at least seemingly enjoy it on the surface. I saw a magician perform recently who will go unnamed. He's like, I've heard of him, and he's supposed to be really great. And I saw him do 45 minutes, and I wanted to kill myself the entire time. But the audience were making noises like they loved it. And I had to tell myself, okay, these people are seeing this they're putting it in a box of this is something that's fun and tongue-in-cheek. I don't think that any of these people really believe that this is good, but they are being entertained. But I don't know. Maybe some of those people were thinking, this is great, this is what magic is. And, I mean, that makes me real sad. But I guess he was doing his job. He was entertaining them. But to me, it was, this is old, recycled material with no new spin and, nothing interesting to say.
Yeah, it's new to them.
It hurt me so badly. Like it ruined my week.
Why? Because he was built up, or she was built up, or it was built up.
It was built up, and as being good. But I think even if I had gone in there cold, it would have still bummed me out. Like I woke up in cold sweats for like a week after it, just being like, like I gotta shake that performance off of me. Just thinking that there are so many people out there. It was at the Magic Castle and it was in the big room, and there was like 200 people who I just saw like, I don't know, making noises like they were loving it. And the thought of 200 people walking around the world being like, that's what magic is, makes me just like,
That's it goes to the I mean, not when you started, but with people who get into comedy, you often hear one side of it where it's like, I was inspired by Carlin, Hedberg, Chappelle, whoever, and then there's the other side of, I went to an open mic and I thought, oh, I can do that. That guy sucks. So it's like that hackiness might also be encouraging people. Like, if that guy can play the main stage at Magic Castle with that shtick, then I have a shot.
Yeah, that is I've never thought, that's a really rich thought, Ramin. The idea that starting out, you're drawn to these two opposing things, one being these legends that do incredible things, and other being these people who are, you're just like, I can, that's not it. I can do much better than that, and I haven't even started yet. I've never really processed, like, getting better, like starting off as a beginner in something and then having these two opposing things guiding you as you go.
Have you heard of Brene Brown? She's a shame and vulnerability researcher, and she's, done the whole TED Talk circuit. She's good friends with Oprah now, and like, has like Braving the Wilderness type of books. If you've seen my bookshelf, you can see I'm all about, Power of Now, Law of Attraction, just all these hippy-dippy self-help books, just because there's a little bit of knowledge in it that can be worded a certain way that does something to motivate you, and then it fades away after a month. It's like, yeah, I know, be here now. Yeah, but how do you articulate it differently? But one of the things Brene Brown said that's really good is that shame drives two tapes. One is you're not good enough. The other is who do you think you are? So when you're feeling resistance towards doing the work that you want to do, it's either like, no, this thing isn't good enough, or you do think it's good enough, and then who am I to, like, in the state of the world now, who am I to go perform magic or comedy when the world is in such a, like, I should go work at a soup kitchen, or I should go do that kind of thing. So if your head is doing one of those things, you can pinpoint it to, oh, it's resistance. It's one of those two tricks it has.
What in the book is there a plan of attack for one of those two things to try to dissipate that thought?
You don't get to dissipate the thought. You just do it in spite of the thought. You do the thing that the thought is telling you not to do, and because it's like you kind of just learn over time to do it a little better. Like I do with when I'm about to post a cartoon or something. If it feels too... Cartoons are actually somewhere where, when you were talking about vulnerable stuff, do I do that on stand-up comedy? Not so much, but with the comics, like the comics aren't funny. They're more just kind of motivational, inspirational thing. And at first I wasn't going to post, like, there's one where it says just make a decision already so the story can move forward, and it has the guy like jumping through the portal thing. I almost didn't post it. I'm like, that's not funny. Like, why am I going to post that? Like, it's dumb. And then just something in me is like, yeah, just fuck it. You already drew it. Just press the thing. Like, the worst thing that can happen is you get made fun of for it, and people are too busy to make fun of you for it. And the also worse is 0 people like it, or maybe some people like it or it'll help me. It's just a reminder to myself. And then the people that did like it, I respected the people that continuously liked the thing. So I'm always telling myself, like, oh yeah, like, or like the stupid ones I post where they get very few likes, or I'll just think like, oh, LaShonda liked this one. Like LaShonda's a friend of mine that passed away like a year ago. Was it a year ago now? I don't know. Time is stupid, but I always think back to like, no, that would have made her laugh if she was here. She would have thought to post that one. So just go ahead and post it.
Yeah, I'm glad you do on all of those accounts. I think actually some of the ones that aren't funny can be some of my favorites. Like you've made me laugh so hard watching you do stand up. But there's also been there's been times where I will I travel all the time. I'm gone all the time, but I always have your book on my bedstand. So when I'm in Los Angeles, I like to wake up and I'll flip to a random page and I'll look at a couple of the cartoons and then just kind of like meditate on them
Oh,
to
cool.
start my day.
That makes me happy.
Oh, it's so good. It's
I don't even own it right now.
Really?
I had to give my last copy away. I've got another print run coming in, but I just got some orders over Christmas, and like I'm out, and I didn't want the person to not get their order, so I had to sell the one off my shelf to him. Like, well, I guess I don't
lost your first edition?
Yeah, I don't own any of my first edition anything.
Wow.
So I sell out, and then I have to get another order of it. I'm not...
You need to do bigger runs, I think.
Yeah, I'm not fancy about it. I'm not like, this is the first one I ever made and the first one that I took out of the package. I'm like, no, this goes to some random dude's house.
Totally.
Goes to it.
Totally. I'm glad you're remaking it. I will buy several more to give as gifts. That's how much I love it.
But yeah, that makes me happy that you read it. You're gone a lot. Like, it's very rare that I see you in town, which is why I really needed to get this podcast scheduled, because I didn't know when I'd see you again.
I'm happy we did it. I feel very, very fortunate that I have the heat on myself in the markets that I perform enough to make people want to hire me to come and perform at their events.
How many gigs do you do a year?
It depends.
Average?
Last year I did like 220 something.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's more than
really
a third
stupid.
of the year, kind of.
It's ridiculous. Oh yeah, it is. Is it more than 2/3? Almost 2/3, I would say.
Mainly planes?
Right?
Are you in a plane most of the time?
I'm on planes a lot. Not doing the show. I stopped performing on airplanes a long time ago.
Have you ever performed on an airplane?
No, I've never worked as an employee for Southwest.
What's the most bizarre place you've ever performed? I've done stand-up comedy on a bus for a brewery tour.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Because at the time they were paying, it was like $500 or $600 for just like a few hours, and like I guess
Who books that?
Oh, I don't remember.
Is that a running joke in comedy too?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know. In magic, it's definitely like you describe a terrible gig and it's like horrible and you didn't get paid anything and it was really rough and and then there's a pause and you go, hey, who books that?
Yeah.
I don't know if that was also a comedy bit as well as a magic bit.
There's this guy I've done some illustration work for. He's a comic in Australia, and he's got a whole thing called like shit comedians say to each other, and that's like one of the main ones that comes up, and it's really funny like listening, because especially in the Australian accent, he's like, who books... I can't do it, especially in that line. Who books that? No, that's terrible. That's like Liverpoolian. But yeah, basically, who books that? I was like, how did he get the festival? You know what? Fuck the festival. Fuck the festival. That was a good accent.
It was really good. You nailed it. And to answer your question, so...
I don't remember my question. What was it?
Well,
oh, yeah,
weirdest
bizarre place.
Yeah. I think I'm going to have trouble... coming up with one that's better than performing it at an anarchist collective in Salt Lake City in a house full of squatters.
Isn't that an oxymoron, anarchist collective?
Yeah, I guess it is. It really is. That was how it was described to me on the phone when I was invited to do it.
And it's probably like, that's my problem with everything. Like, not that, that you should just throw your vote away or things like that, but when it's things like, I don't know, anarchy or libertarians or just the people that they have the whole thing worked out, like the whole system will work out better in this. Like, how do you know? Like, you have all the variables plugged into your simulator, and you know with like human psychology it's going to play out like that. Like, it's not going to play out like that. We're humans. It doesn't work like that. I would love to believe that, just laissez-faire economics, like just let it go, and there's some people will be firefighters and some people it'll just work out. Or like even communism, like, no, just let a few people be in charge of it and they'll give people the stuff. They won't be greedy. Like, how do you know it's going to play out like that?
We got to do a controlled experiment in America where we take like 4 states, just 4 states that, like, I don't know, like Arizona. Let's take Arizona and make it purely libertarian. let's take, what should we make communist? It's got to be, you can't do like New York or California. They're too populated. You need like smaller. Vermont, yep. Vermont can be communist. That's where Bernie's from, right?
I think so.
Okay, so there we go. All of the like super conservatives.
Are you a Bernie guy? Do you get very political at all?
I do, and I really do like him a lot. That being said, once he was not the Democratic nominee, I supported the Democratic nominee because of all of the things that are happening right now that I was hoping to avoid. Did you see the Magicians for Trump video I did?
No.
Oh, really? I did a card trick pre-general election as the character is a Trump supporter magician trying to explain how good he is with a deck of cards, and then I keep shuffling the cards, and as I'm talking about him, impossibly, the right cards keep coming up to explain like things from his life, but then I start to fall apart because I realize that he's a liar, and I keep trying to fight against it, and the whole thing falls apart.
I need to watch that.
You might get a kick
even
out
though
of it.
it's after the fact. But
yeah, I need to do an updated one.
Yeah, it's cliche now to say it's crazy because we all kind of have acclimated, but also not acclimated because we wake up and we're like, wait, he's the president? I guess he is the president.
Yeah,
but
I think I've been, and I really don't want to be that guy, but I do feel like I've been in a worse mood this entire year.
I think everyone has.
Yeah.
Even the people that, but then again, I don't know. We are in a bubble. I'm not connected to people like, no, I think he's doing great. And even I love to just look at everyone, and I even look at Scott Adams' blog because he had an interesting thing going for a while where he was, basically saying that Trump was, he's not a buffoon. He's playing at a higher level, and he's just persuading things. But then as time goes on, there's like holes in even his like elaborate solution of the thing. No one really has their finger on what's going on. But I don't think the people that voted for him are happy either, which is why they voted for him, because they're unhappy and they're disenfranchised.
Totally.
And robots are taking the jobs away, and you only hear from one side of it, and so it was a fuck you vote to everything.
Absolutely.
And then there's people that just vote party, like, no, we're red, we're going to vote red, we're not really paying attention to the
absolutely. I do wonder what would have happened though, because like Bernie is much more anti-establishment than Trump is. Like Trump, like talking about this whole idea of drain the swamp that he kept harping on, that's not a real thing that he wants to do or did. Like the people who he put in power are all like millionaires and billionaires. That's not taking elites out of power. That's just putting less qualified elites in power. That's all that is. But I wonder if Bernie had won the nomination, if some of those people would have been like, well, I slant conservative and I don't like some of this like communist ideology that they were made to believe that he is, even though like democratic socialism is much different than socialism or communism. But I think some of those people might have been like, no, that guy hates the establishment too, in a better way. And maybe that might have like swung some people. I don't know. I guess we'll never know.
Yeah. But also we don't know how. It's easy to focus on the negative, but there has been a lot of just like light being shed on all the stuff, whether it's the sexual misconduct things or just having the eyes be on government more. Like before, we didn't really know who this chairperson was, the FCC blank, just all that. Now people are just scrutinizing everything a lot more. So it is interesting in that people haven't just bowed down to be like, well, I guess it's just next 4 years. It's like people are still upset, and every day is a thing with it. That's a sentence, right?
No, it's totally
I'm just an optimist. I'm an eternal optimist.
I like that so much.
Even beyond like, well, what about my friend's son who was killed in the I'm woo-woo optimist. I'm like, well, we all die eventually, and I think his soul is fine. And not that we should just go around murdering people, but I think that there is some very, very big force at play, why we're here, why we're sentient beings that are able to communicate with each other and even witness and be aware that we are witnessing. Because what is witnessing? Like, why is there stuff? Why is there not just a dimensionless plenum of just zero with nothing going on? That makes sense. This doesn't make any sense. Why there's complex forms and evolution and space and light and... Yeah, so there's optimism there.
I like that, and I like your optimism, and I need a daily dose of optimism. That's why I open up your book every day.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm going to say thank you forever. But I like this Terence McKenna quote of him saying, basically, he had this thing of giving intelligent people permission to hope, because it's often that intelligent people are like, no, we're doomed. Like the polar ice caps already reached the thing. The Great Barrier Reef is already dead. There's no hope. But he would say that I believe that nothing is wrong, nothing can go wrong, and if something needs to be done, you will find yourself doing it.
Oh, that's so good. That guy was so enlightened.
Yeah, and I mean, he died at 52 with a tumor that was shaped like a mushroom in his brain, and so like it's easy to look at that. It's like, well, yeah, he's dead now, but robots are one that I seriously believe that within 20 years, there's going to be an artificial intelligence that can recreate everything that I am, like my thought patterns, my voice, my indistinguishable. So then at what point is that a thing, and am I a thing? There's something... None of these actually have formed a cohesive thought yet. It's all just grabbing at little, like, kind of impressing tidbits of future and light.
It's really hard to put together one thought, though, because it's such a new concept, and all of that is so much closer out. So much, it's going to all happen much sooner than we ever imagined when we were kids. Like I forget what it's called, but there's some principle about how technology doubles every...
Moore's Law.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. Like, it does seem like it's going to keep going, even though people were theorizing, oh no, we got to this point in 2017 where so much has been invented that, like, it's got to be slowing down now. It really doesn't seem like it is.
Yeah, and think of Back to the Future 2, where Marty McFly's dad, George McFly, is watching, like, 8 TV channels at once, and that scene is just like, oh, that's crazy. Now, like, that's kind of what we do now, like when we're browsing Netflix.
Yeah.
If you're on a porn website, it's always just tons of windows there. It's like it's very rare that we sit down and engage with one content. We're like looking at tons of pieces of content at once. We're scrolling down our phone all the time.
That's making us unhappy, it seems.
It is, but it's also making us happy in that we're connecting to friends, and like, because we coordinated this meeting with no verbal communication, like
That's
all
true.
Like in the rectangle. It could have been an AI I was talking to the whole time. It was confirmed that it was not once you showed up, but I didn't give it serious tests.
It was confirmed. How do you know that I'm not an AI?
Oh,
Ben's in the car practicing magic tricks.
Oh, because I filled the air with like a humidity that's supposed to make your skin rust, but it hasn't rusted yet.
I was wondering why my hair was poofing up.
What was I going to say? It doesn't matter. Got to be present in the moment. I was actually doing a thing where I just sat still for 10 minutes before you came here, kind of trying to be present, like, and not saying a prayer, maybe like a meditation of presence, because I think that's something that everyone is lacking right now. That's why we're unhappy. It's because it's not because it's the content, not because of the lights, but it's playing into our bad habits of not being present and not enjoying now, and now can be confused with like, oh, just sitting at the chair and looking at the floor now is boring. I don't like now, but the true now, not the present slice of the movie you're stuck in, but the now encompasses all moments. And if you're in the true now, then you're not feeling scarcity anymore. It's like anyone that's died or anyone that will be is in the now, so it's okay.
Wow. I like that a lot.
I hope it made sense.
I think it did. I think that was the original title that Ram Dass decided against. Be here, sitting in the chair, trying to encompass all of the things, past, present, and future, so everything is okay. And they're like, no, dude, that's way too long of a book title.
Well, if you zoom out enough, like, eventually you will see that it's not temporal anymore. Like, and I don't have the maybe I do. Yeah, as a human, I do have the technology to zoom out all the way, but I don't have one that I can hand you in the form of a telescope or something. But if you zoom out far enough, nothing is happening. It's all just the
static.
same one thing.
I want to do that just like I want to get better at doing that when I'm present in the room is just to try to step out of myself for a moment as a way of like looking down at who I am and where I am and what's going on and the situation I'm in and the interaction I'm having, just so that I can then go back into myself with a greater knowledge of all of the things that are happening and look at my surroundings objectively instead of being stuck in my head.
Yeah, there's some good guided ones. I don't know if you do the guided meditations, but ones that guide you of like you're now like levitating 6 inches above your body. You're now levitating 6 feet above your body.
That's
you're
just
looking down.
That's a magic trick. I do that too. Just
is it?
Floating. No, I mean, yeah, it is.
Have you witnessed levitation and magic? It always comes back to magic.
That's okay. That's fine. I mean, I am a magician. It makes sense. That's one of the many tricks. Like if you break magic down into the 10 basic tricks, which there really are only 10 different ways to violate reality that we kind of have found, and one of them is like putting one solid object through another solid object, which like that genre or that idea is referred to as penetration. Then there's a disappearance, which is obviously just making something vanish. An appearance.
You can't be a penetration magician.
No, you can't be one who just specializes in penetration. I mean, you can, but like, yeah.
But like going to that party and like being like, I am a mind, I'm going to show you some things that are entertaining, and I'm a penetration magician.
There's definitely people who have said that before, and I'm sure they've been handed the check and asked to leave immediately. But yeah, floating is one of those things.
I was in New Orleans when I was about 10, and there was a like street magician guy that put me on 2 chairs and put a cover over it, and then pulled the chairs out, and I was still
suspended.
Still suspended, and I couldn't feel the chairs. I didn't know how I was doing. It was pretty impressive.
That's really awesome.
You probably know how that one works, right?
Well, yeah.
Jeez. All right. Well, I guess I should probably wrap up because you've got to get to the.
Well, I
dinner.
mean, I can stay as long as our good friend Mike Kaplan, name checked for the second time on this podcast, is meeting up with me once we're done. But I can go as long as you would like me to go.
Oh, you got a few more minutes in you? Let's keep going a few more minutes. Let's cover some bases we haven't covered yet. I tried to write some stuff down, see if we didn't cover it before.
Yeah.
No, I think we covered all this stuff before.
Ramin is reading his notes. He's looking down at a piece of paper.
Do you have faith in the future? Not like, 1,000 years in the future, because that's going to be just whatever. That's another... that's something that I think about a lot when people think, what about our children? Like, our children are going to be unrecognizable in 100 years, regardless of what we do. Wouldn't people 100 years ago kind of be disgusted with our reality? We love it because it's like more accepting, but would they be disgusted, or would they be too busy being entertained and overstimulated looking at us? Depends where they look, I guess. But just with I
think the Puritans would be very unhappy.
Puritans would hate it. With more time that goes on, we're like giving evolutionarily, if it was evolutionarily driven, disabled would not have a place in society. It's like, you're weak, we should not have people with disabilities. We need to have strong genetics. Like, I wear contacts, I have terrible vision. I would be eliminated real fast. But that, like, transgender, LGBTQ, all that, like, it's becoming a more accepted. Well, there's still pockets of unaccepting it, but they're not that's not what the future is, though. The future goes towards less hairy ape.
Sure.
Kind of.
Yeah, and that's a really good thing to remind yourself if you find yourself struggling in these times of 2017, at least living in America. It's a good thing to remind yourself that things are slowly getting better. Like if you zoom out and you look at like social issues, that they're all slowly getting better. And sometimes, we wish that a lot of them could be solved right away, but usually if you zoom out, quality of life is a lot better.
Yeah, and you can solve them within your immediate vicinity. It's quite a tall order to solve it within the entire dome of the U.S., but I can make this room like a super tolerant, good place. Like, I'm not killing any animals in this room other than spiders. I won't kill that spider. That one's been there for months, and I don't kill him because
it's
just one that hangs out in the corner. But things like brown recluses or black widows, like, I'm sorry, you pack too much of a punch.
Yeah, no. There's no room for those in my life. I came home from being out of town, and my roommate Travis Sentel, who's really great, he also has a podcast, which is really great, called "Does Your Favorite Movie Suck?" that you should check out, and it's all about rewatching old movies from your childhood and then seeing if they hold up under modern lens, which is really
One
fun.
of my favorites was The Bear Who Slept Through Christmas.
I didn't see it.
It's just an animated one, and I watched it, I think, when I was 18. First time I watched it, maybe 5, and yeah, it's real slow.
It turns out a lot of like great classics from the 70s and 80s are super racist, but no real surprise there. But Travis Sentel, great person. I come home. He is my roommate. He bought a house, and I live in a room there. And I came home from being out of town.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, I've met him too.
Did you? Oh, of course, he was there.
Yeah.
I always forget. Yeah.
I went to return your jacket because our friend Mike Kaplan, name drop number 3, borrowed your suit to wear on his Conan O'Brien appearance.
Mike borrows my clothes because we have the exact same body type, so he doesn't have to bring nice clothes to LA when he performs here. But it means that a lot of my clothes have better TV credits than I do.
Do you try for that stuff? I haven't tried in a while.
Wait, try for what?
Like, I haven't...
To have Mike Kaplan's body size?
Oh,
name check
maybe
number 4.
I am kind of. But I haven't... So television doesn't just come into your lap. You have to make a tight 7 minutes. You have to know the person to send it to. You have to be sending it at the right time. Have you tried to get late night appearances, or you don't invest a lot of time in getting that? You have appeared on shows, but you haven't done Conan.
No, I haven't. I don't feel like I have the thing that I'm like really ready for to pitch to late nights. I had some interest from one of the big ones that I was excited about, but then also like they kept hitting me up and I was resisting to submit. And then at one point I was like, oh, maybe I'm making a huge mistake. This
Why
person
were you
who books the
resisting?
show, because I just didn't think I had the right set for it. Like doing magic on TV is you want it to be something that holds up to rewind. Like doing something live, magic is happening, the bridge is burning behind the spectators. So when they turn around, the solution isn't there anymore. But on TV, you can rewind and look back. And so I wanted to have I have TV type material, which means that a lot of the live stuff I do would have to be altered so much that it's not ready in its current state. But I eventually said like, oh, maybe I'll lose this opportunity. And so I pitched a thing, and there was some interest, but it didn't happen yet. I just don't think that. I don't know. When I did Penn and Teller's show, that was a piece that I'd worked in for like 8 or 9 years, and then it was ready. I just don't know that I have the 5 or 6 minute chunk.
What about the watch stealing one? Or you already did the watch stealing, so you can't do that again?
Yeah, I could do that again, but I would want to do it in a new way because I've already done it on. Yeah, I've already done it on TV. I would want to make sure that the approach now is vastly different. I do have a story. We have some open programs right now. I want to come back to the story because you pointed to the spider, and I brought up Travis Sentel, and that leads back to this quick but fun story where he left town in the afternoon one day. I came home that evening from being out of town. I got to the house. He had caught a spider. He had put an inverted glass on top of the spider and then just left it there for me to find. So it was only under there for like maybe 4 hours, but he left it there for me to deal with. So I took the spider.
As a prank, or he didn't want to do anything with it?
I think just to be funny. No, I know just to be funny. So I took the spider outside. I let the little guy go. I went inside. I washed out the glass. And then I set the glass on top of his bed, also inverted, and I put a piece of cardboard underneath it, but I put the glass right up against the edge of the cardboard, so there's a little space. So when he came home, he had this situation to deal with. He'd be like, okay, this is really good. That's really good.
That's a good prank right there. And it's no harm done, too.
We like to think that we live in, we call it our intellectual frat boy household, because we like to be as bro-y as possible as a joke, but then also talk about politics. And then we'll just yell intellectual frat boy household and high five and drink a beer.
Drink a microbrew.
Yeah, exactly. But then again, open programs, things we were talking about. You asked about late night. You have this interesting thing on late night where you did an appearance on Craig Ferguson's show, which was really funny and really great. And then I asked you if you were going to do more, and you had this thought like, oh, I kind of did it. Like I know what that's like.
I still want to do it more, but I guess the thought behind there is, of course, resistance, and the other is knowing that it doesn't mean what it used to mean, like in terms of, I mean, nothing does anymore. It's always losing the value of it, but
Back in the day when someone would perform on Carson and immediately that would be like their superstar.
I got a lot of, it made me feel good, but it also made me feel bad because I was subjecting my face to, and at the time the Facebook feed wasn't, right now it would get buried. Like I'd totally love to do it now, but at the time it filled the Facebook feed up so much to where it was all I saw anywhere and all that anyone else that was kind of within 2 degrees of separation from me saw it, like posted, like it wasn't 27 people shared this. It was like you see that post, you see that post, you see that post. If you scroll, it's all you see is my face. And it's like what I always wanted. But then when I saw it happen, it's like that's kind of, I'm doing an aggressive thing in doing that. I'm subjecting my face too much to people, and that's not making people happy. It's making people jealous for the most part. Like some people that are my friends like it and they're happy to see me succeed and maybe laugh at the jokes and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I'm just like, people are working their shitty job and they're just checking their social media, and then there's this guy and his face, and then more and more and more. And that's just kind of what I felt about it. So I didn't feel like I needed to do it right there again. And I think it's what led me down more of the illustration path, because I never felt that the illustration stuff was aggressive. I felt that I was actually providing value and something enjoyable for people to look at, whereas a picture of your face and then I'll be appearing at Madison Square Garden tonight, you're going to work at a restaurant.
Yeah, but on the flip side, and I think the flip side is, at least to me, as a person who likes your comedy and likes seeing you perform, I think to myself, like, yeah, you could look at it that way, or you could look at it from the perspective of there are so many people who would really, really love what you do and like see you as what you are, which is a really unique comedian with a really interesting voice doing different shit and doing comedy in a different way than most people do, which is in many cases really hard to find. There are all those people who don't live in Los Angeles and might never get a chance to see you live if you don't put more material out there for them to see.
Yeah, and I agree with that too, because I'm pulled in opposite directions. Like I'm self-hatred and I'm the greatest person in the world, both directions equally pulling, and I end up somewhere in the middle. And so that's only one thought where I was thinking I'm subjecting people too much to my face. The other side of it is I did try to get on Seth Meyers, and the booker said it was like too alternative of a set. Like they want more just straight jokes. And he said it's more of a Conan set. You should try sending it to Conan. And I didn't know the Conan booker that well at the time. And then before you know it, like just a few years goes by and you just don't do it, because I'm not itching to. Before I was itching to do it because I needed to feel legitimate as a comic, not just like you're doing mics or like, yeah, you're doing the Velveeta Room or something. Like I wanted to be on late night television, not just cable, like actual TV where if you buy the TV, you can just watch it. You can see it in a hotel somewhere.
Yeah.
And then I taped the album, which did another thing for me, which was now I have, if someone says, oh, you do stand-up, it's, yeah, I've got this hour, and if you come see me, it's a different hour than the one you're watching. So I felt good about that, but like going back to the being pulled in a billion different directions things, then I feel like, well, I'm not doing enough with the animation and comics, and that's what I want to be more than. Like I always identified more with like the South Park guys or the Simpsons more than I did as Jerry Seinfeld. Like I never see myself as, oh, there should be a Ramin show where I do stand-up in the beginning and then it chronicles me around my day and I go on dates and stuff. Like I never really wanted to have that kind of thing. I wanted a more fantastical, like animated musical kind of thing. Not musical and the Broadway musical, but like sound, like playing with sound instruments. And just every year I feel like I'm getting closer to, I know I'm something. I don't know what that thing is yet and what the name for it is. And it's possible that I never get bigger than what I am now and I only decline. And it's also possible that the main thing that I do doesn't exist yet. You know how some people get huge on Twitter or Instagram, or they, like Mark Maron became big on a podcast. Like, it's possible that I'm a virtual reality kind of animal, and my main like avenue of expression is somehow through VR, and that's when like 2022 I become like really like on my game. That's like the thing, and until then this is all building up to it. I don't know, or I could die like today, and then it's just this body of work, and then that's it. But I don't know. What about you? Are you itching to do the late night, or it's just a thing? Because it feels like you've done television stuff, you get booked a lot. It doesn't feel like you're seeking legitimacy as a magician. It's not like if you do Conan now you're legitimate. It's more just kind of one more notch on the belt.
I suppose, yeah. But I also think those things, like realistically, I think those things go away after a certain period of time, which is one of several reasons why I get asked to do America's Got Talent every year, and I always say no. And
because it's too judgmental?
No, it's not. Well, no. I forget who it was who said that, like, that judgment is the death of all art. That plays into it, but that's not even the main reason. I think that happens, and then you like pop, and if you do well in that show, you get a lot of eyes on you, and your life changes. And then I think that little hump where you have this high, I think it ends really quickly with that show, and then you suddenly go back down to right where you were. And I don't want to go back down to right where I was and have burnt the material. I want to make sure that if I'm going to put what is now my current hour out into the world, I want to make sure that it's the right delivery system, because magic is, I mean, it takes a long time to develop magic tricks. There's plenty of working magicians who don't even develop that much new stuff, like some of the people we were talking about, like make an okay living. Not a lot of people, but you know, there's not that many magicians, but some make a handful of people make a living doing magic that's not really original. Most of my current hours was considered like pretty damn original in magic.
I'd never seen it.
Yeah, that's like 10 years. So part of me is like, okay, am I ready to burn this thing that I used to make my living?
Yeah.
Like, how long will it take for me to create a new hour-long show? I don't know how people do it. It blows me away when I see people do that. There's only like, in magic, Penn and Teller, Darren Brown, not many people are putting out like new material and new hours and stuff.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to do, I imagine.
No, it's really not.
What's your big fantasy pie in the sky embarrass yourself, like, for, like, let's say in the upcoming year or two? It's like, oh, it'd be really cool if I could get that hour into a Netflix special, or if I could headline this particular venue, or are you just kind of more go with the flow, like, no, I'm just happy to be working, and I'll just be doing the stuff, no pressure in making a consumable product which burns the material?
I do want to make a consumable product. I just don't know
I
what
love
and
consumable
how yet.
products so much.
Yeah,
that's
man,
part
me
of this.
too.
I love that this is a conversation that goes out and then lives forever. Someone 100 years from now is listening to this right now. They're probably listening to millions of things, not just this, or maybe someone's just indulging in just this, but this exists forever as a waveform, and I think that's super cool. And there's no reason it should be like that. There's no reason we should be able to talk into this microphone. It goes into the computer and upload it into it's so ethereal. There's no reason it should work, yet it is.
Yeah.
And that's very cool. But yeah, back to consumable products. I love albums. I love books. I love film. Tweets, meh.
Same.
Instagram posts, meh, unless you can compile them eventually into a
bodies of work
thing.
Bodies of work also speak to me too, in that same way where like when I was more interested in, not that I'm not interested in music, but when I was younger, I was more passionate about it, and I was consuming more and like collecting more, and I was really all about albums. Things have really changed, I think, since we were in high school, between then and now, going from like the excitement of the album going to now just like, oh yeah, hit song.
It's a singles driven market.
Yep, it's a singles driven market.
Not only that, but have you heard that there's you know how some kids don't know that there's not, or basically their favorite artist is, Drake Radio. Like, so they don't even know the names of all artists. Their favorite artist is whatever happens after I pick this one artist, and then other people come out of the radio of that. So it's becoming even more disconnected from where we grew up with, like, no, I worship Hendrix and, Cream and Led Zeppelin and Funkadelic. Like, these are my guys. Now it's people don't have guys anymore. It just turns on like a faucet. Music just comes out, which you can be sad about it because now it means I don't get to be one of those gods anymore. But the plus side of that is you could release 10 albums, and if one of them does really well, it'll influence those people, and the 9 failures no one will register as, because no one witnesses the failure other than maybe people in your close circle and are like, what is that? But like, let's take Zach Sherwin, a good friend of mine. I haven't listened to all his body of work.
Oh, he has so much, though.
I want to listen to all of it. I haven't heard it all yet.
Yeah.
He has full, like, good records of stuff he's made, and I haven't heard it all yet.
Yeah,
and
sometimes I'll sit down and I'll just watch Zach. Sure, Zach is also a good friend of mine, and, like, you can just watch music videos, and you just can keep going and clicking on more Zach Sherwin videos, and there's always more. I'll sit down and I'll watch, like, an hour of awesome, interesting, unique content that he put out into the world, and there's always more when you come back. It's crazy.
So you were saying that we grew up with albums, and you're not as interested in albums anymore. What was the thought there?
I think we're all. I think I'm guilty of being influenced in this new way of thinking, where things are now much more singles driven. In almost anything. Like, I guess not for me for comedy. Like, I want to see an hour that someone puts out into the world. I don't want to just see a clip out of context where it's just like 5 minutes of jokes. I mean, I'll watch. You
don't want to see a 15-second Snapchat comedy morning.
I mean,
clip?
It's not. No, I don't. I don't.
Hate it.
I don't at
so
all.
Much.
God, we're so old. I bet there's people who will be listening to this at some point and being like, really? Come on. Like, we want to hear those 10-second jokes.
So dig this. I think we're old, but at the same time, it's accelerating so fast that it doesn't, it's not going to matter. Like, for example, before it's like, oh, you haven't heard of, Tutti Rudy and the Ass Hammers, like, you're so old. But in today's world is, you haven't heard of Tutti Rudy and the Ass Hammers, but wait 5 minutes, it's like, who? So anything you cling to that you're telling the older generation, you're old, I'm young, I'm with it, as you're describing that to them, you've gotten old because it's already surpassed you. So the only place you can really be in is just the now. If you're tapped into the now, you're not old anymore.
Yeah.
But if you're clinging to a thing, it's like, no, this is what it's all about right now, you old. As you're chastising someone for being old, you're already old yourself because it moves too fast. And there's something comforting in that.
It's totally comforting, but there's also something terrifying as, like, a content creator or an artist when you, like, apply that formula, because if you're putting something out and it's appreciated but then becomes obsolete almost immediately, then that's not good for people who are creating things. Then you get into a situation where, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it harder for then artists or performers, musicians, people to make a living putting out material? Or do you think that things are evolving in such a way that with Patreon and other new ways of artists recouping money, you think that it'll change with the system and then it will be okay?
It'll be okay because we do have to move beyond money. And the big picture with that is it's the way our cells work. So our cells can accumulate more wealth than they need, but only after all the cells have their weight. It's not like the liver has, like, no, I'm not giving like energy to the heart. Like, these are my what's the term for it? I can look it up later. I'm not a biologist, but I just know the basic thingness of it, because basically our body does work on a socialist kind of system where you can have reserves of energy, but only after everyone has their everything taken care of, because otherwise the whole body doesn't work. When you do have cells that only are interested in themselves, that's what a cancer is. That's what it literally is. It's when they're only taking resources for themselves and growing their own thing rather than the whole body. So when we get to the point where humanity as a whole is like everyone gets their things taken care of, but you can acquire more wealth, but after everyone has their baseline thing, which is what Star Trek The Next Generation is, that where they have, once you have matter synthesis, money goes out the window, because if everyone has a matter synthesis machine and an internet connection, then entertainment content is just, you can't charge for that anymore. It's all free. And you can't charge for food anymore because that's all free. And if you have if you figure out energy through some kind of, I don't know, magnetic toroidal tapping into the way the universe actually moves rather than combusting things and extracting the 0.0001% of energy that comes out of it. I don't have the machine on me, but it does have to work that way because there is a universe and it is in motion, and we do need to tap into that motion rather than going against it because I mean, why is everything already spinning? There's got to be some reason as to that already.
If the universe works the same way that cells do, then that's a good sign.
Yeah,
I
and
hope.
It's possible that no, this is a failed species, but I don't think that it's easy to branch it off as humanity as a failed experiment, and then it's up to the bonobos. They're gonna be the thing, or lizards, or some kind of thing. We're by definition the strand that has continuously been evolving and succeeding.
Yeah, leading back to that question you asked, do I have hope? And I do. I'm a skeptical person by nature, and so it's easy for me to be, I think, negative towards a lot of things when I see bad things happening. But I think I am a hopeful person, and hope to continue to be hopeful because there's so many wonderful, beautiful, magical things in the world, like. Things are good, and even though there is badness in the world, there is so much good to live for and look forward to.
There is, and while it's what is it? It's the open-minded skeptic thing is good. Like, be skeptical, but also keep your mind open. Like, there's infinite solutions as to how we can turn this thing around. I was watching that Bill Nye Saves the World show, and I really appreciate the thought of it because he's right, and of course there's climate change, and of course we've got to do something about it now, but I don't know, having like the supermodel correspondent and just explaining it in terms of what am I trying to say? You have to communicate it correctly. You have to communicate why do we want everything to keep going rather than we have to keep everything going. And,
yeah.
I haven't watched the whole show yet, so I shouldn't be critiquing it or one way or another. And it's better than my science show about how to save the world. But
I like them both. Today's podcast is sponsored by Bill Nye the Science Guy New Show.
Have you seen the whole show?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay.
I also haven't seen all of Stamps.com though. So to be fair,
geez, I use Stamps.com. It's fantastic. I've got the scale right here. One thing that's funny about it, that's going to sound like a stand-up bit, even though I haven't done it in a stand-up bit. But
Ramin is now clutching the microphone and pacing. He's leaning up against a brick wall.
How's you guys doing today? The Stamps.com, all the commercials are like, tired of going to the post office? I hate the post office. With Stamps.com, you don't have to go to the post office anymore. You can print digital stamps right off your computer and a printer at home with a digital scale. But Stamps.com is owned by USPS. So it's like, tired of going to Pizza Hut and sitting in the dirty chairs and with our stupid wait staff that smells bad? Get Pizza Hut delivery. With Pizza Hut delivery, you can eat pizza at home and not have to deal with the shitty service there. It's like, it's the same company that you're...
What's going to be the thing that branches off from Stamps.com that gets even smaller and meta, where it's the same thing, which is fuck Stamps.com. They don't, you used to have to use a scale. Now you just have to think about it, and your packages get delivered.
Tired of thinking about stamps. I am. That's why stamps just show up before I have the thought. So I know that they're there for a reason, even if I don't know that I'm about to get an order to
There's one step down from that, too, which is tired of Stamps.com and that other smaller thing that we described. Stop sending packages.
And then it just condenses down to a single tone of thatness.
I'm glad all of those previously described things exist, though, so more people can get your book.
Me too. And okay, let's close this out. Any final thoughts?
I am so happy that you invited me to do this.
Me too. I think it was good. Do you think it was a good podcast?
Yeah, I think it was fun. I hope so. I guess we'll find out. If you guys didn't like this podcast, please tweet us at Real Donald Trump.
Is it Real Donald Trump or the Real Donald Trump?
I don't know. I don't pay attention to that.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, God, why did... things were going so well. I'm so sorry that I brought it back to that. Can we do more
to.
Stamps.com?
No, it's important that it always has to come back to Trump. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's the world we're living in now. But it won't be in like 3 years unless he wins again, and then it will be. But maybe some AI robot or something will fix everything.
Let's drink to that.
Yeah. Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Thanks for having
Ben
me on,
Seidman,
Ramin.
it's been a pleasure. Everyone check out, where should they check you out? Social media? Would you rather them look at your YouTube? I think specifically that watch stealing clip is awesome because you can slow that down and be like, I don't know how he did that.
There is a clip that people seem to really respond to, the one with the broken glass, where I put a piece of broken glass in my eye. People seem to love that one. But that's on my YouTube channel. If you just search Ben Seidman, Seidman, then you'll find me. And I'm also on Instagram at Ben Seidman. So I guess YouTube, Instagram, and I hope that I'm someday. If you're listening to this podcast and you're in college, I will probably perform at your college sometime in the next 2 years.
Hell yeah.
So keep your eyes open.
Yeah, and if not, like ask for them. You want to see this. Oh, something I've done in the last 2 podcasts that I want to do is we do 10 seconds of silence, not even meditating on anything. It's just silence for silence sake. And it's weird to have it at the end, but whatever. We'll just do it right now. So are you ready?
Yep.
All right, and go. All right, that was some good silence right there.
So good. Why don't we do that more all of the time in life?
I don't know. It's like then the gum would run out of its flavor or something like that. We have to keep the flavor of the gum or some similar analogy. But that's been the show. Thank you for coming on the program. We'll have you back on soon. Hopefully you can catch Ben in my show if you're in Los Angeles at Alternate Universe when he comes back into town. And it's been fun. That's at the end of the podcast. All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.